without further ado, let's get rolling. Josh.
I'll introduce myself here. Hey, everyone. I am Josh Lance. I'm the managing director and founder of Lance CPA Group. Lance CPA Group is a fully virtual and remote CPA practice that focuses on doing accounting and consulting services, tax services with the craft breweries, digital agencies, our main niches. I also teach in my other roles and other hats I wear. So I teach at Northwestern University, and recently I started teaching at University of Vermont as well in their craft beer program, which is super exciting. It's always fun to drink and teach at the same time. So I'm happy for that. So that is me. Lance CPA Group's been around for about 6 years now, and so we've kind of grown the practice from me just starting it out to now we have a decent sized team, and we're doing a lot more services beyond just the kind of transactional stuff that we started with.
Love it. Sweet. Hi everyone. My name is Yusuf West. You might know me from kind of my past life at HubDoc, where I led marketing. I've worked really closely with accountants and bookkeepers and the small business owners that they work with for a while, and I really like it. I think a great group of dynamic people who really care. And I would actually bucket accountants and bookkeepers together with small business owners because you're all building your own business. Mm-hmm. One of the core challenges across HubDoc and now Relay is the challenges you all have with actually working with the banks that your clients use. It's kind of a limiting factor on growth, makes collaboration hard and makes, the most important thing, which is financial visibility, even harder. So excited to talk about advisory services and quality of inputs and all that good stuff. Super quick, 2 seconds on Relay. It's basically business banking made easy. It solves everything you hate about your traditional business banks. You can actually access your clients' banking from the Relay Partner Portal, so you can sign up your clients for a Relay bank account, provision with access, user permission. It's really awesome. You get reliable bank feeds with enriched data. So no more trying to figure out, check 1, 2, 3, 4, who is that actually from? You can see that data inside the bank feed in the accounting system. And we have payables automation all baked in with approval workflows. If you want to learn more, go to relayfi.com/partners. Really easy.
Thanks, Yusuf. So I'm Colin, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Float. Float has just turned 10, so we've been celebrating that over here in Scotland. And to give you a quick introduction to Float, I used to run a business. I used to get kind of paralyzed by not knowing exactly where the numbers were. What I was getting from my accountants wasn't really helping me. So I reverted to building spreadsheets. And then as we started using cloud accounting, we thought, hey, why not make this so much more automated? There's so much more behind these numbers that could really help us. And, so that's really why we started the company. And, our passion is to really help reveal to business owners what is going on in their businesses and just give them that peace of mind that they can be on top of the numbers and empower them to make financial decisions with confidence and not having to second guess. So really for businesses that are growing and they're having to spend cash, they're always able to now to check in and see where they're up to and question, are these figures correct, and see where they're historically coming from. And that's really what we built at Float. I'm really excited to start working with the new banks like Relay and the accounting platforms that we integrate with as well. A few quick things just on all about visualizing. We started off just working with businesses directly, and then we realized businesses need bookkeepers and accountants to help them create budgets, because often they don't know how to do that, and also introduce them to the tools that are in the ecosystem that can, instead of them having to spend hundreds of thousands on really expensive software, annually, they can pull together the tools they need. And we see Float for being cash-based forecasting as one of those kind of key tools. We also let you set expected payment dates around payables and receivables, so that you can see what if this client pays us late, what the impact of a late payment or the impact of not getting cash when you expect to. And then the final layer for us is the scenario planning layer. So you can add, you can build multiple scenarios to try and get, to really understand. We've planned for all cases. So that's Float in a nutshell. I look forward to getting into it more with you guys in a bit.
Cool. All right. So outline for today, 3 things. We can keep it really simple. How to get started with advisory, the opportunity, what our clients are actually asking for, and how do you align that with the services that you offer? And then the process, how do you actually deliver advisory services? So I think this is the stat that brought us all here, brought us all together. Firms who do advisory services increase their revenue 66%. It's pretty meaningful. I'd love to increase our revenue by 66%. Maybe we should start doing advisory services. I think every business owner, is looking for those additional ways to increase revenue. And I think this is something that is easier to kind of get to, and you're probably closer to than you might assume. So let's talk about what actually advisory is. So from our perspective, there are basically 2 buckets. Number 1, there's simple advisory services. So this is really kind of where you can go from offering just basic compliance services and then adding additional layers and services to your business. The interesting stat here is that 60% of these kind of simple advisory services, actually, like that revenue opportunity is primarily around budgeting, cash flow forecasting, and business planning, which is like, I would say pretty close to probably some of the services and conversations that you're already having today. And like Josh, when you started offering advisory services, you're kind of further down, more on the complex end now. But like when you first started, were these organic conversations that kind of came up? Like how did you navigate kind of initially getting into it?
Yeah, so I think where this kind of came into play for us as we started to work more closely with our clients and work with them for a longer period of time, we started getting these type of questions, right? Of, hey, like, we're trying to think of through this business process. Do you have any ideas for it? We're trying to think about if there is a better software in place. Can you help us work through that? We're trying to understand, where we're going in our business. I think initially for that, it was like, hey, they're asking us some questions, want our knowledge, and we're providing that. Now, we weren't necessarily charging for it because we weren't thinking through like, hey, this is actually a service that we can repeat and do over and over again. But you start to kind of get into this, right? You start to do that transactional piece, and these questions will pop up. The clients will start asking about these things. They want to know your knowledge and expertise. We specialize in working with the craft brewing industry and the digital agencies. And so they have the same issues and they run into the same things. And so they want that knowledge and say, like, what have you been seeing in the landscape? And so that's kind of how we started in our advisory journey, is just listening to our clients, starting to talk to them, and then realizing, hey, like, we're actually providing a lot of value here. We should start to actually put this into services and repeat it to our clients at large. And so, some of those things like that startup mentor and advice, right? Like, that's a very easy thing to get into because you have this knowledge base and you can start to offer that to them. And things like cash flow forecast, and particularly this year, right? Like we've done more cash flow forecasting this year than we've ever done in our life because people needed that. They're struggling through trying to figure out how they're going to operate their business, and they just need that help, right? And so these are kind of easy ins to get in there and to be able to offer this service and to be able to provide knowledge, right? Without having to be like, the super expert in everything, right? Like, how to run a cash flow, like, how to do those things. Your clients don't, and they need that help.
And when you first started having those conversations around like kind of the basic advisory service around budgeting, cash flow, forecasting, what was the trigger point or the tipping point that changed it from, hey, this is something we're doing, to here's something that actually we can offer as a repeatable service?
Yeah, I think when we, especially as a smaller firm, we were just happy to help, happy to be there. And I think we started to see that like we actually have this knowledge, right? And it's sometimes to us as firm owners or accountants, it seems like everyone knows this information and like, why would someone spend money on this? But the reality is you do have a pretty unique set of knowledge and a unique knowledge base that you're bringing to your client, and they don't know that. And the reason that's why they're coming to you, they're asking those questions to you, is because you know things they don't know, and you have insight and expertise you can offer that they need. And so I think our kind of point in this was, as we started to do, we're doing monthly accounting work for our clients, and these questions were coming up. It's like, we're spending a lot of focus and time here. Like, this is something that we should be offering and charging for, because this is a value that our clients want. And in reality, this stuff is the stuff they want more than, okay, my books are done this month, great, or, oh, you got that tax return, awesome, right? Like, this is the stuff they get excited about, and the stuff that like you can actually have meaningful impact on how their business gets shaped in the future. And so our kind of triggering point of that was like, hey, like this is stuff that we like to do. We enjoy doing this stuff, and it's stuff that our clients are asking for. So let's actually make this happen, and starting on that. And I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by this, because even like you look at the advisory service, the budget, cash flow forecast, and business planning, right? It's easier to say, like, okay, well, I'm gonna try to sell all that to them, and they may just need a part of that, or they need a component that you can actually give to them, and also in selling that, you have to kind of provide like the why of like, what's this going to get them, right? A forecast is a forecast, right? But it doesn't mean a whole lot if you don't do anything with it, or it doesn't incite action from that. So so kind of giving them that why behind, like, okay, like we can start doing this cash flow forecast on a regular basis, and this is what it's going to get you, and this is what you're going to see from that, and this is some of the things that it will offer you. And I think once you kind of frame it in that realm versus like, we provide advisory, we can advise you, right? There's not really a sell there, but it's the why of what you're doing there, and then showing them that. I think that's where that kind of service comes into play, and you can start to offer it again and again and again.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Like it's really the meat there that's underneath the, we bucket in the industry, bucket it as like advisory services.
Yeah.
The small business owner doesn't care,
yeah,
right? This is the truth. They want to know what's coming up, how they should plan to operate their business, and really putting it in terms they understand is really the key to being able to actually level up and offer that as a service, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's jump to the more complex side of things. So this is kind of where you're graduating from, doing the cash flow forecasting, cash planning forecasting, and then moving up into kind of more virtual or outsourced CFO services, and perhaps like business apps / software services. Again, we can see the bulk of kind of the revenue opportunity is with one or two kind of services that you can add to your stack. And Josh, like you're doing virtual / outsourced CFO services, business apps / software services as well. And now you're also doing HR advisory services. Can you tell us like kind of what that graduation process was from kind of the simple to the complex?
Yeah, I think, as you dig into this, right, and again, like a cash flow forecast is a good entry point to dig into this, is understand, okay, what are the clients needing? And we saw, particularly like HR advisory services, we work with a lot of small businesses who don't have that knowledge base internally. They're not even thinking about, do I need to outsource this, right? Like, I'll copy some forms online and that's my HR program, right? Like they're not really thinking about it, right? But there is a necessity of that, and things come to light and you start to see that. And so we started seeing our clients ask more of these HR questions. And so we said, okay, let's dig into that. Let's play with that a little bit more. And that's led to us actually having an HR advisory service that we now offer that has nothing to do with accounting whatsoever, but it's all HR advisory, but it's things that we've learned through the way working with those businesses, digging deeper with them, and as a result, seeing that need that arises there. Same thing with like business performance benchmarking. With our craft brewery industry, we just got a lot of questions like, how do I compare to other people in the industry? I just don't know. There's not a lot of public information on this. Like, how do I do that? And it's like, so we decided to put together a annual business benchmark where we pull all this data together from clients and other people we know, and we provide that to our clients. And again, that's a huge way to provide this complex advisory, because now we're giving them all this insight, and then we're telling them what to do with this insight. Saying, hey, based on where you're at, these are the things you should be changing, and that gives a lot of value. So just kind of continuous like digging in and getting deeper and deeper and deeper with your clients, and you start to one, you start to uncover these things, but two, they see you as a invested part of their company. And one of our brewery clients almost talks of us like a partner, like we are owner. We know we're not an owner. We act in almost that capacity with them. We're providing that insight. We're being there with them as they go along. And by doing that, we can charge higher fees as a result, because we're providing a lot more value, and that becomes a big revenue source for us too.
I have two questions there. So one is the business performance benchmarking. That's huge, right? Like as a business owner, yeah, you're operating in a little bit of a silo. A lot of other business owners kind of don't want to talk to each other about stuff because there might be some, posturing, perhaps, going on. And so like you were able to actually offer that service because you have like such a strong niche in craft breweries.
That's right. Yeah. And again, we had all this knowledge at our fingertips and all this data at our fingertips. How do we bring that together and give some value there? And that's something great that you can do. If you are niched in an industry, you have that information. You have that from a really localized perspective with each of your clients. You have that with industry groups you're involved in. And you can take your insight and the way you see things from your vantage point and turn that around and provide value. And that's a higher level complex advisory service you can offer, but it's also something that if you have that niche, it's easy to get into as a result.
Got it. That makes sense. That journey of like starting out with the simple and moving to complex, when you started doing the simple, you realized that there was this thing that kept coming up and you turned it into a service. Once you kind of learned that lesson, did you just apply that going forward where you're like, hey, looks like there's this pain point, let's figure out how to monetize it? Was that kind of consistent as the firm matured?
Yeah, it is. It's ensuring that part of this is how you structure your relationship with your clients and that you are getting that insight, right? You're trying to have deeper relationships and get that information. If we try to really operate in that transactional level, we're not going to see that. We're going to miss that. So, being more proactive and digging with your clients allows you to uncover these things, uncover these opportunities. And again, if you're niched or if you start to see that, once your eyes are open to that in one or two clients, you start to see that come up again in other clients, and something that maybe you weren't as aware of now becomes very aware. And now you start to see, okay, I can provide a service that fills that need. And something like an HR advisory piece is one of those things where you may get into like, you're doing payroll, right? Very transactional based. But now you start to dig into it and you see, okay, they're having a turnover issue, or they're having lots of hiring going on, or they're growing a bigger business and they need to think about benefits, right? And so you start to uncover those layers and you dig in a little deeper and you get in a little deeper. And now you're just doing a bunch of HR advisory stuff that kind of formed off your payroll work, but now that's really more value than just doing transactional payroll.
Got it. That makes tons of sense. So, that's kind of the journey and kind of the two buckets where you can think about advisory services. So you have the simple, where 60% of the revenue opportunity there really is around cash flow forecasting and scenario planning, and really that's like a great place to start. It's probably conversations or some version of a conversation you're having with your clients. As Josh mentioned, consistent communication with the business owners that you work with is kind of critical to uncovering these additional revenue opportunities, because when they trust you and they're open with you, they'll share their problems and their challenges as business owners. And that often can create opportunities for you to offer services or offer guidance as needed. So we've talked a little bit about kind of the journey that you've gone on to offer advisory services at Lance CPA. Did you just purely see this as an opportunity to say, hey, I can actually grow revenue and charge more? And that was like the trigger point where you're like, hey, I'm having these conversations anyways. I know my clients need it. Yeah. So let's just bundle it in. Or were there any other factors that you consider?
Yeah, I think this is, I'm going to say an issue with accountants at large is sometimes we don't want to charge for our value, and we want to be the hero, and we need to still put food on the table and pay our mortgage and all that stuff, right? So I think for me, what happened was, I started doing these, getting these advisory questions and starting to do some of the service work, but not charge for it, right? I was just doing it to be a good accountant to my customers. And eventually came to one customer who said, Josh, I need you to invoice me for this work here. Like, you're doing a lot of stuff here and you're not charging me. I need you to charge me for this because I feel bad that you're providing value and I'm not paying you for that. And that was kind of a part of the thing that kind of kicked me over the edge of like, oh yeah, I should be charging for this, right? When your client tells you to charge you, one, you're doing something right, but you also need to, get paid, and they're looking out for you there. And so I think that was kind of a trigger that helped me get there. And then and as we start to work and sell to new clients and look at our own clients, again, it's just being in contact with them and understanding what they need. And so I think it may be easier to, when you get a new client that comes to you and it's like, okay, I'm gonna sell you advisory services and what it looks like. They don't get that right. You haven't built that trust up yet. And so you kind of have to work and figure out, okay, what is the right fit for the right client and how do I go about doing that? And really decide how I'm going to sell that service. And so in some cases, we'll, offer that in our initial packages, but they won't take that, but they'll get there at some point. And so at least let them know that you do that is critical. I think so often it can be very much like, oh, you need a tax return, I'll do a tax return for you type of situation. When reality is you do all these other things they need to know about it. They may not sign up for that right away, but they need to know that you do that. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. And when they do need that, cash flow forecast, and they're going to go find someone who's going to do that when you can also do that work yourself. So when you just kind of offer that out to your clients, making sure that they know that what you do and how you work. And that may not be something you give to them right now or they need right away, but it's at least in their, now they know and they have that knowledge to say, okay, if I do need cash flow forecast or I do need HR advisory, I can go to Josh and he can help me with that because that's something that their firm does.
That makes sense. Like the theme that you continue to kind of touch on is like, talking the language of the small business owner, and really like using the language of, oh, we offer advisory services. Okay, that's great. But like specifically, what is it and what is the pain point?
Yeah.
And even as you talked about those new clients that might be coming in, where they're looking for a specific solution, right? They're looking for compliance services, let's say. And so they might not care about advisory services yet, but really like nailing that core use case is really critical to unlocking kind of that longer term relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that becomes, it becomes key to position yourself with clients, whether new or existing, that you do more than just the transactional component, right? Or the compliance component. And I think, again, it gets into that point of how do we position ourselves to our clients and making sure they know we do that. And we're not just the tax shop or we're not just the bookkeeping shop, but we do these other things and we can provide that value. And to them as the client, they come to you because they need help and they don't know what they need or how that help should come. And so it's our job to kind of, fill in those gaps and show them. And they may not pick that or go that way right away, but at least they know what the landscape looks like. Because again, that comes back to, you may know all this stuff, but your clients don't, and your prospective clients don't. And you need to help educate them, at least position yourself to show that, hey, I can do all these things, even though that's maybe not what you want right today.
Cool. And it just for everyone listening that might be earlier in their journey on kind of getting to advisory services, offering complex advisory services. Josh, you've been doing this 6 years.
Yeah.
And so it's taken time to evolve it. This is kind of, we're closer to the finished product or, on the path.
Right. Exactly. Right? Yeah. This was not me 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was me floundering around. Right. And it's okay. Like, you're going to learn that stuff. And that's just kind of the evolution of a business owner, is like, you have to kind of figure out how you're going to serve your clients the best way you can. And it's not to be just going to flip a switch and like, tomorrow I'm going to be a complex advisor and I'm going to do all these things. Right. That you have to work up into that and you have to figure out what works for you. Right. For some people, doing some cash flow forecasting is right in their wheelhouse. And for some people, doing HR is not, and they have no part of that, right? And you have to know yourself and know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and not sell something to a client that you can't actually do yourself, right? So what I see with some firms is when they start to sell advisory is they sell everything in the advisory sun, and they don't know half of that, and they're not experts in that or don't even have to deliver that. And so you have to know yourself and know what you can do. And you're going to learn over time, and the services you offer are going to change over time because your knowledge base has increased and because the way you work with your clients has changed. And so the service that you may want to offer now that you can't because you don't know how to, you may be able to do in a year or two because now you've gained experience doing other things that have led you now into that next tier of advisory services you can offer.
Makes tons of sense. So let's get into it. Let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes of it. Oh, Colin, this is you, right?
Yeah, so I guess Josh, there's definitely some questions that I'd love to get into. I think it's we're back on that's the slide. I can play the role, in some ways, Josh, of the business, because I've been on the other side and, I've been wanting to say to our account, charge us more, give us better service. Mm-hmm. And I think, it's interesting for me, having been on this side of both sides of the fence now, trying to help accountants to move more into advisory, because, what we keep saying is, you can't just sell cash flow as a piece of software. You have to build a service around it, and you have to be able to charge for it. Otherwise, nobody wins. So that's where this whole advisory services thing comes from. It's actually like pulling together a piece of work that, but any piece of work that we buy as a business, we need to know what the value we're going to get out the other side of it. And that's the thing, is you often don't know what you don't know. So I guess my question for you around this is like, how did you deal with some of the objections that did, some clients that they were like, well, I don't know if I need a cash flow, or I don't know if, that would actually be much use to me, or I don't know if I want to pay more money, or how have you handled some of those objections that have come up for you as you've planned the advisory service?
Yeah, I think we've kind of handled that a couple of ways. I think one of the ways is to reframe how we talk about advisory with clients and talk about what it gets them, right? Like, instead of okay, we'll give you a cash flow forecast and it does these things, it is, hey, we can help you make these decisions about when to buy new equipment and how to, when you need to bring on new people and staff and things like that, right? And we can do that by doing this cash flow forecast. We do it by doing these advisory services, and framing it that way helps, because now you're showing them what you're going to offer them. Again, and then they don't know what a cash flow forecast is, right? Like, okay, what is that? I don't know if I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna look at that. I don't even look at the income statement you send me regularly, right? Like, why am I gonna use that? And so you have to really frame like how that's gonna be useful to them. But then it's also trying to be cognizant of what are their needs are actually, right? Like, you may think, okay, you need HR advisor services, but that's not maybe what they need right now. Maybe they just need some help with like some good payroll system and things like that. And so you have to be kind of selective and kind of think about what are the actual needs, and not just try to sell a suite of advisory services to a client that they don't actually need at this time, or doesn't actually provide the value they want. And so, that helps when you're in that industry and you get that knowledge and you kind of know like, okay, here's the things you want. And sometimes the client just needs to learn it the hard way too, right? Like, I think when we talked about cash flow advisory in the past, we pitched it and we thought it'd be a good service. Like, I'm fine. I got this. Like, I look at the cash in my bank account. It's all right. And then this year happened, right? And now it's like, oh crap, I actually do need this. I didn't know what I was doing, right? Staring at my bank account is not the right answer when it comes to cash flow forecasting. And so you have to, sometimes they just need to learn that the hard way and figure that out too, right? So like for us, again, like we've been doing a ton of cash flow forecasting this year just because of the necessity of, given the pandemic, of what's happening. But in the past, they may not have wanted that because they run the business and everything's fine. I have cash in my bank account. I don't care. And something that's just like they need to learn, but also you need to kind of structure to them. Like, this is what this is going to get you. And staring at your cash account and is not going to solve your answers here or tell you anything of meaning of how your business is going to look in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when it comes to things like startup mentoring, I think another objection we hear from accountants and bookkeepers is, well, they know more about their business than I do, and I'd feel a bit of an imposter sometimes if I know how to do the numbers and the compliance, but I don't know about all that. And what we're seeing is, you've actually got a huge amount of knowledge just because of all the businesses you work with that you might not be able to you haven't written a book about it yet, but you actually, when it comes to it, there's a ton of wealth of knowledge there that could be really useful at the right time. And did you have that sort of imposter syndrome? Like, how did you deal with that when it came to actually, I've got something to offer beyond just the numbers?
Yeah, I think, we all deal with that imposter syndrome from time to time of like, do I actually have what it takes to help them out? And again, I don't think we understand that we do have this knowledge that our clients don't have. Yeah, they may be an expert brewmaster, but they have no clue how to run a business. They may know their how to do their work or how to sell to their clients in a way that you don't know, but they don't know the business ramifications of their actions. And so I think part of this is just understand how you run your own business, right? As an accountant, you run a practice or a firm, like you're a business owner, you dealt with this stuff, right? Like, you know, when a company needs to start up, okay, here's the things that need to happen. You got to get your legal forms up that, you know, these are the things you need to do. And then you go to a bank and they're going to need those forms, and you're gonna have to get an accounting system in place. And you know what the path is because you've gone down the path and you've seen your clients go down the path. And so some of it's just like, again, it seems almost so simple for us because we've done it so much and it's just kind of how we work. But for our clients, especially those that are starting up a new business or things like that, they just don't get it. And they haven't seen that. And some of these things you may think like, well, yeah, duh, everyone knows that. Actually, no, you know that. And these people do not know it, and you need to help them, and you need to give that education to them, and share your stories, your knowledge that you've had, and running what you've done and working with your clients. And that's of value, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've kind of encouraged accountants to do when they're taking on a service like Float is to almost run a pilot for, you know, say, look, we're learning on this as well. Like, why don't we sit down and we'll meet together once a month for the next 12 months, and at the end of it, you know, we'll review and we'll say, was this a valuable service? And we're not going to, you know, we might not charge anything for those 10, like maybe pick a handful of clients you're going to do it with, just to build up the confidence. Like, we often find that way, it's almost, some people feel like they have to know everything, and if they were found out that they didn't know, like they didn't know how to use one of the apps perfectly, that it would be really shameful. But would that be something you would kind of go along with?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, you know, especially in, you know, when you come into a new application or trying to find a piece of technology that fits what they need, you may not know the answer, right? Like, you know, we've run into that with, like, you know, some like the brewery management software type stuff, right? Like, we're not in it day to day. We're not running brew schedules. We don't understand that, but we can learn, and we can learn with them. And, you know, we know technology. We know we worked with our piece of technology and had the, you know, them integrated and set up. And sometimes your client just needs someone to walk alongside with them and say, yeah, like, I don't expect you to be an expert in this cash flow software or this brewery management software or anything like that, but if you can help me along that process, because you know some of the questions that I'm probably not going to answer or ask, and you know some of the things I should be looking out for, and you set the game that, right? Like, you know, even with some of the, you know, when we work with breweries, right? Like, I didn't know half the things I knew when I started working with them, but you learn that over time. And sometimes it does mean I have to dig in and be wrong and screw up and mess up and learn from that experience. And if you have clients that you are being truthful with and kind of, you know, not trying to say like, well, I'm this perfect expert, I've done a million cash flow forecasts and you haven't done squat, right? Like, just say like, yeah, I can help you with that. I'm going to learn alongside you. And I may not charge you, or I may not charge the first couple of clients, but then I will, because now I've gained this expertise and I can now deploy that with my other clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the other sort of secret piece that we've noticed is that, you know, a lot of accountants or bookkeepers might be afraid to go into an app that they're learning as well. And so what, you know, I think, but what we often say is, you know, like, learn with, we'll teach you as you go. So if you bring clients to us to, you know, Float and say, hey, we think we want to run Float with, you know, a handful of clients to see how it goes, like, actually use us, bring the apps onto the calls to do the education with you. Don't feel like you can't engage. I think there's a lot of support out there, because we're learning as well. So we love to work with firms that want to actually roll this out and not just sort of, we want to be very hands-on. So I don't know if you've experienced that as well, but there's a lot of resources out there that people want to help. You don't have to do it on your own.
Exactly. That's for sure. Yeah. I think, especially with all the kind of the app vendors in the accounting space, they are so helpful in trying to help you along there, right? Because one, they want your knowledge too of like, how does the accountant see this and work with this with their clients? But they also, again, they know the app, right? And they can help you along, and you don't have to go out alone or try to figure out yourself. There are lots of resources and things available as you go, and it makes your life easier too, right? And especially, you know, with some of these programs and their partnership programs that they give you those resources. So tap into that, use it. That becomes really helpful, and learning that and be able to be confident with your clients with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I know I'm just conscious of time, so we can skip on. And this one, all I'll say on this one is that we did some research, and we did some research with businesses to say, well, what do you want to see from your client? And 30% are saying we want people to be more proactive. So there's a desire out there in the business community to have that, you know, regular touch points. And I think that's a really good place to start advisory, to say, look, let's put a meeting in the diary every so often, every month, you know, and if people are willing to pay for that, then that's a great framework for sort of going, well, we're gonna be chatting next month. Let's cover that then. And sometimes things aren't as urgent as they need to be. So that proactive piece can actually lead to a more balanced workflow over time. That's certainly been, you know, what's coming through from the businesses we're speaking to.
Yep.
And then on the next slide, Yusuf, just diving deeper, we find that, like, you know, this is mostly being covered, but I think, you know, a lot of businesses need help with creating a budget. Like, it's just something that they've never done before. And certainly taking a P&L budget and working that into a cash flow, it's actually really complicated, and for a lot of businesses to get started with, and just feels like it's a really, you know, I think the other thing we find here is that, like you were saying earlier, it's not always budgeting and cash flow and business planning aren't things that people often get their head around, or certainly budgeting and cash flow, but business planning is actually something that, hey, let's make a plan for the year, and then let me hold you accountable to that plan. And actually then the budget and the cash flow just become part of that solution, rather than the end goal in of itself. You know, the value is in the business planning and having that somebody alongside you to keep you on track.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the question here is, you know, if you were starting out from scratch today, like, what would be your first couple of key steps that you would take to get started again, if you're doing it all over again?
Yeah, if I was doing all over again, I would probably start more on cash flow and making that just really kind of just a part of my regular services, right? Like, not even offered as this, you know, additional advisory service that we do. It's like, no, this is when we do bookkeeping for you, like, this can give you a cash flow forecast as well, and just make it part of it. I think there's so much value in there, and it opens the eyes of business owners by doing that. They learn things that they, you know, probably didn't understand before. It answers some questions of like, hey, I'm making all this money, but why is there no money in my bank account, type of thing, right? Like, here's how the forecast works, and this is why that's going to be the case if you operate in this way. So, you know, I think that is a helpful place, and it's something that in a lot of cases they value a lot more than a balance sheet or an income statement or a set of, you know, reconciled bank accounts, right? Like, that stuff, the stuff that's going to get them energized. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do something with this now. So if I start my firm over today, I think I would put cash flow forecasting as a key part of just doing any work with us.
Totally. That's great. Yeah. Love it. Yusuf, over to you for the next section.
Yeah, absolutely. So delivering on advisory, like, there's really three core components. So one is the quality of the data that you're getting in, the reliability of that data coming in. Two is the technology stack. Like, what are the tools you're actually leveraging to be able to offer, you know, that cash flow forecasting that Josh just mentioned. And then lastly, what are the workflows that are going to be involved to be able to deliver that advisory product? As Josh mentioned, you know, initially he was kind of doing on an ad hoc basis, effectively advisory services, and then eventually realized, okay, we need to be able to turn this into a system. And so let's just dig into it. I think at a high level, if you have garbage going in, you're going to have garbage going out. And so quality of inputs is really critical. Our view at Relay is, you know, Relay's a business bank account. is that the quality of information and the reliability of that information actually going into the accounting system is critical. And that's how you leverage solutions like Float, because you have high quality information going in, and therefore you can run reports, run better cash flow forecasting, and really help your business owners. So when we think about what a successful foundation looks like from a data perspective, it's three things. It's one, accurate. It's two, reliable, like no more broken bank feeds effectively. And three, it's real time. So you want to make sure that the data is getting flown through. And that's kind of the dream, right? We've all been working towards it for the last half decade. And I think we're finally getting closer. But it's really, if you can control that data, have a great data source like Relay, obviously, it really helps further down the line. And on the technology front, and Colin will speak to this in just a minute, it's really kind of two flavors, right? There's the manual and spreadsheet driven, or you can actually automate it with great solutions like Float, by connecting them up to your accounting system and leveraging kind of high quality inputs on the front end, so that when you get to the back end with the reporting, it's really high quality, it's accurate, it's reliable, and you're able to get business owners the information they need when they need it, which is really critical. It's no good getting a cash flow report of the last 90 days when it's already 30 days kind of old, I guess. And then, every business is unique. So you want to be able to customize your reporting. You want to find technology that will actually work with the clients that you work with. And that's really critical. And I think that's why a lot of people actually go through the spreadsheet route, because they're like, I just want something that works the way that I do.
Yeah, so this is the kind of classic custom spreadsheet that I've worked with in the past, and spent a lot of time kind of trying to get those figures in those boxes correct. And I guess what we envisage for Float is like, what would it be like if those figures were actually coming through live? You can set the figures that you're expecting, but then as what happens if in marketing or in costs, they just go way over what you're expecting. You've got that information today. Why not get that information today in that box for October, rather than waiting till you're getting a report 30 days late? And I think that's the kind of, this is a great starting point just for a client just to see this. But where it gets really interesting for me as a business owner is whenever I want to go, hold on, let me look at that figure and click into it and figure out what it's made up of. And actually what we find is that it becomes almost like a carrot rather than a stick. When you're constantly having to say, hey, can you send me over those receipts? If you're pushing your clients for data, there's no real incentive for them to give you anything. But once I can see it in a cash flow report, then I'm like, I'll do whatever it needs. Which one of my employees is not sending in their expense claims? Like I will do whatever I need to do to make sure this report is up to date whenever I need to look at it on a daily basis. I'm like you're saying, it starts with great data in. And I think all businesses really want that. It's just that up until they see the need for it, it's really hard to motivate yourself to spend time on this stuff. So we are passionate about helping businesses become more efficient in how they run, and it starts with great bookkeeping. And that's the service that once you do this, the cash flow should almost pop out automatically. It doesn't need to be, once you've set it up right, it's just about getting the data to flow through and making all the systems super efficient. And then you can get into the more conversations like, well, what else could we do? Where else could we have where else could we use cash in the business? What if we, need to take out a loan? Would we be able to make the repayments? Those are kind of the questions that you can get into, and it becomes, you'll see the businesses, like their eyes are much more open to those kind of conversations when it's about the future, not about the past, especially for growing businesses. We find the businesses that just want to maintain are less interested in this. They're kind of like, as long as I know I'm profitable, I'll be okay. But when businesses are wanting to grow, or we had a financial crisis, then that's when this stuff is super urgent, and it feels like there's no better service to be giving people than this. This is a kind of like end solution. We know we don't expect to exist in a vacuum either. We feel that solutions like HubDoc and Receipt Bank that will flow into will be the basis for automating the bookkeeping solution. So then getting the weekly bank reconciliation or the daily bank reconciliation in some cases, then these kind of things like Flow, Spotlight, and Fathom, or all the other great reporting solutions out there, that will actually, that just makes it all sing when you've got those things as the basis. And I think when the client starts seeing those reports, then they'll start to get alongside you and say, what can we do to help to make your life easier, so that we can actually sit down and having that monthly sit down with them as well. It kind of it spurs them on to get things done. So Josh, I don't know if that resonates with your experience as well.
Yeah. I think if you take a more passive approach with your clients, they're just not going to get on with this at all. And so having those regularly touch points, putting this information in front of them, and giving them the insights to say, like, here's what this means and how you should utilize it, is helpful. They need that kind of, that translation from, the pretty pictures and the numbers and the charts and the graphs to what do I actually do then? And that's, having that kind of more active engagement with your clients allows you to do that. And then obviously by doing that, you're going to provide more value, and by providing more value, you're going to get more value from them with your higher fees.
Great. Is this me or you, Yusuf?
I was muted. I started to speak and made the mistake we've all made in 2020. I hope it's all of us, not just me.
Once or twice.
Yeah, exactly. You're muted. You're on mute. So this is the Holy Grail, right? As we just kind of talked about, like you have high quality inputs coming in from a HubDoc or Receipt Bank into the accounting system. You have a bank that actually like helps you automate the payables and delivers high quality information to accentuate what you're getting from the source documents as well, and just automate the bookkeeping really easy. And then that combination going into Float helps you play the role of that trusted advisor. And that's really how it comes together. Cool. All right, that's it. Before we quickly roll into questions, we just want to roll a quick poll. So I'm going to launch that now. Really appreciate all of you voting. Just trying to get feedback on like how useful this was, and also if you'd love to hear from Float or Relay for your firm. Cool. While that's going on, why don't we jump into the Q&A? For whatever reason, my Q&A window is not opening. So I don't know if Colin or Josh, if you can.
So there's one question on, is there a particular size of business that cash flow advisory should be offered? And I would say it can be offered on all sizes of business. It just will be deployed a little differently depending on your size, right? So maybe a startup business is going to be a lot more just focused on like cash burn and make sure you have the runway on that, right? And so you're going to focus your efforts more on focusing on that and identifying that. For a growing profitable business, right? You're going to see, okay, how many, what cash am I generating? How's that going to be used to continue to grow the business? So you can use it in a variety of ways and in different sizes of business, but you have to kind of tailor it to that. Talking about like, it's a startup about some like, okay, well, you're going to take this and invest and do these things like. That's not a reality for them because they're just trying to make sure you have enough cash to stick around for a couple of months. And so you have to really kind of tailor that to the type of client. But I think all clients, especially when it comes to cash flow, need it. And it is very useful for them in running a business.
Yeah, we find from our research that once you get to, when you're kind of like 1 to 3 people in a business, you kind of manage to keep a lot in your head because you know exactly what's going in and what's going out, and you kind of look at your bank statement if you've got a good bank and see where you're at. But as soon as you start getting to a point where you're maybe 4 or 5 employees, the payroll is quite chunky every month, and you've got people that are wanting budget for things like a marketing budget, then it starts to become really difficult to keep all that in your head. And that's certainly what we've seen, that, it's good, but it's good to get the building blocks in place before you actually need it. So really, if you're a growing business, like I agree, once you're kind of heading on a couple of employees, that's the time to start thinking about it, because you're going to need it faster than you think.
Sweet. And Josh, what would you say, like, I'm sure you've had this conversation a million times about offering advisory services. Like, what's the number one kind of wrong assumption that folks have going into wanting to offer this as part of their packages?
Yeah, I think, oh man, I think there's a couple of wrong assumptions. One is that clients will just buy it. You put in front of them, they're going to buy it and you're going to make all this money. It's going to be great, right? Like you have to show them the reason for this and the need, right? And you have to change that relationship from this kind of compliance transactional piece to this advisory piece. So some of that is just how you work with your clients on a regular basis. And then making sure that you just don't, it's very easy. Like I'll put a tool in place and that tool is going to do the thing and I don't have to do anything with it. Right. Like, and that's not what your clients are hiring you for, right? Like they can put a software into place. They need you to take that information, utilize it, and then provide them insight from that. So your advisory piece isn't necessarily, just doing the work, and it's taking that information and translating that to your clients. Like we use, for some of the like the KPI stuff, right? We use Fathom in our business, right? And if I just gave them Fathom reports and walked away, like that's not useful. That's not advisory, right? Like it's pretty, it looks nice. It's got some good information there, but that's not advisory. The advisory part comes with me, like taking that information saying, and now here's what we do. And now here's how this is valuable. And now here is what you need to do next in your business or what you need to decide on. That part is where advisory kicks in. So it's a nice marriage of the tool and the person, taking that information and making decisions off of that. So, so not just slapping a piece of software in there and calling it good, right? Like you actually have to do something with it, and you have to utilize it in a way that your clients can understand what's going on and then they get it.
That makes sense. Cool. I don't think we have any other questions.
We're good. Nailed it.
All right. Sweet. Thank you everyone who joined us. Thank you, Josh, for joining us and sharing your experiences. Colin as well. And all right. Happy Tuesday.
Thanks, Yusuf. Yeah. Cheers, guys.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye.